This is the Moza Racing R3, and at around 400 quid currently for everything you see here, this could be a strong choice for getting into sim racing. In this video I'll run through what you get with the R3, anything important that you don't get, my general thoughts on who this is best suited to and what to expect if that's you. Just a warning so I don't waste your time, given my lack of an Xbox I won't be able to showcase or road test its Xbox compatibility, so if you're looking for an Xbox centric review this won't be it, and sorry about that. For the PC crowd, let's press on. Just quickly, as with all of my hardware reviews, you'll find links in the video description detailing places that sell Moza, and if you use those links and then proceed to buy, that will help support me at no added cost to you. Those are affiliate links and that's the way they work. But there is a big link to a Moza reseller list. They've got tons of resellers around the world, so don't just look at my list, look at that full list as well. In the interest of transparency, there could be somebody that's closer and geographically more sensible for you and could be cheaper. The R3 seen in this video was provided by Moza free of charge for review, but they don't get to see this video before you do, and to their credit, they've never tried to influence or otherwise interfere with anything I've said, and I have criticised them in the past, so they're not sensitive either. First up, a quick summary of the main talking points so you know what's coming. The force feedback is very smooth, clean and agile, but it's not very strong. It's just about on par with the standard CSL DD in my opinion. The pedals are basic but strong and well proportioned. Precise braking is difficult with a non-load cell brake, but the software can heavily compensate for it. The R3 is compatible with all current Moza rims, so if you don't like the rim it comes with, you can buy another and switch in seconds. Can't do that with Logitech. The table clamp is excellent for use on a desk. The pedals aren't amazing for freestanding by themselves though. You will definitely enjoy the R3 more if you have even a basic wheel stand. Everything feels pretty substantial and heavy duty because most components are metal. There's not that much plastic on show, at least certainly not compared to Logitech and Thrustmaster, so you do get a sense of value for money. Younger sim racers aged 18 or under will love it, and this is a great starting point, but those older will want more power and should definitely opt for the R5 instead at a minimum. The R3 bundle is all contained within this lovely looking box. The ES wheel is extracted first, and for an entry level wheel it feels weighty and substantial, featuring a full metal quick release built in. The grip material is pretty basic and rough to the touch. It's probably the most unluxurious wheel I've owned, but it looks hard wearing and that's good enough for the price. Next is the wheelbase itself, the R3, and let me tell you, this would have been an object of pure fiction even 5 years ago. It's so small, it's tiny, and although it's called the R3, that's kind of underselling it because it does have a maximum torque of 3.9 Newton meters. And that 3.9 Newton meters is delivered via a direct drive motor inside. So not only is it nearly double the power of a G923, but there's much more to it than that. Direct drive is currently the most premium and effective technology for sim racing force feedback wheels, vastly technically superior to gear or belt driven wheels. However, because direct drive is now found in entry-level wheels, the term has kind of lost its previously prestigious meaning because 4 Newton meters is not tremendous power no matter how it's delivered. It should come as no surprise that the R3 just cannot compete with bigger direct drive motors like the R9 or above. And there's no need to feel bad about that. If you like the R3, then it just means that you're going to love what's in store for you once you step up to a bigger power band. A substantial full steel table clamp is supplied. This will hold the R3 steady in a storm, but you do have the option to mount the base directly to a cockpit using the threaded holes on the underside of a base, so the table clamp is entirely optional. Next up are the pedals, the SRP lights. This is a basic throttle and clutch, the exact same that you get in the R5 bundle. With a full metal construction in black, it's a nice pedal set in relation to what you'd normally expect for the price of a whole bundle. The brake pedal is not a load cell brake though, more on what that means later, but that's also totally normal for this price point currently. You can adjust the horizontal positioning of each pedal using the pre-formed holes, doesn't take too long to do, and is a nice bonus. A clutch pedal can be added on for around £45, but if you're driving Formula or GT cars, you very likely won't need one. With a setup like an R3, you're in the price range where it's possible you'll be putting this on a table, not onto a cockpit, so I'll touch on both ends of the scale. If you're desk mounting, the supply table clamp gives the wheelbase a very firm hold on the desk, no issues there whatsoever, and the R3 itself won't shake your desk to pieces. It's a really quiet base with not tremendous power, so it should be fine to desk mount. The pedals aren't quite so great for desk racers. Their design means they can easily tip forward if you're not holding them down with your heels, leaving you with an awkward kind of feeling where you have to hold the pedals steady with the foot you're not using. You'll definitely have a better time pairing it with a wheel stand if you can help it, or make a pedal board out of wood to give them a stronger platform. It'll be cheap and easy just to get you by, and I've done it myself a long time ago with much stiffer pedals than these. It's a perfectly good option to get you by. If you're attaching it to a cockpit, then you can use these two front bolt holes to mount it to pretty much any cockpit because it follows the bolt pattern of a Fanatec wheelbase. You can get an adapter to use all 4 bolts that are under here, but really it's not necessary. The R3 is not powerful enough to require that. The front 2 bolts will be more than adequate and hold it really steady. The pedals will mount to pretty much every cockpit because they closely follow the pattern of Fanatec's CSL pedals. So if your cockpit lists Fanatec CSL pedals as compatible, then these should also be fine. And once again, you don't have to go crazy with it because you won't be putting high forces through them. A couple of bolts at the back is more than enough. Next is software setup. As once you've connected your R3's pedals, wheel and wheelbase together and connected it to your PC via USB, you now need to install Moza Pithouse. Pithouse is Moza's software equivalent to Fanatec's PC driver or Acertec's Race Hub or Simagic Simpro, and is a necessity to have this running while racing to make sure everything works as intended. Pithouse is really simple and really easy to get into, and it's presented well. You can't do loads with 4 Newton meters of power. There's only so much flavour you can put into it, but there are definitely things you can do to make it better than what it is out of the box. I made some tweaks that definitely made it better for me, and you can find a link to my settings in the description below. It's a racing setup, not an ornament, so let's go racing. iRacing is my simulator of choice, my bread and butter, and I know it well, so that's why I'll be proving the R3 with a live fire trial. I live streamed 3 Porsche Cup races, all top split, so very competitive, putting my 5000 iRating up as the wager to ensure that I am trying my absolute best to hold on to it. This real test will benchmark and verify the R3 in a way that risk-free solo laps just can't. And what happened was quite surprising. I actually achieved decent results. My iRating took no hits. It actually continued the upward trajectory that I've been enjoying on the high-end Acertec kit I've been reviewing before this. This stream was a great result for the R3, it showed it in a very good light and genuinely beat expectations, but of course it's not the full story. I'm not suggesting that this £400 setup was comparable to a £3,000 setup, but it's a great thing to be able to say I drove multiple good races with it in a very tricky car. The force feedback is good enough to utilise, but depending on who you are, it might not be enough to excite. Whilst I was able to use the information the wheelbase gave me to keep things well on track, the sharpness and brutality of more powerful direct drive wheelbases like the R9 and above isn't there. That means that if you find yourself becoming an enthusiastic sim racer, the R3 will probably have a shelf life of at most a year before you experience an unbearable itch to upgrade. The R3 is going to do a good job of giving you just enough to see what sim racing is all about, but then once you've made that discovery, you'll want to leave it behind. But I guess that is the mark of a successful starter bundle. At the end of the day, I spent a lot longer, years, on equipment that was much less powerful and refined than this. So I'm trying to remember that when I assess the R3 for people coming into sim racing. I imagine that there will be a lot of people that are going to be very happy with this to begin with. In my live fire test, predictably the pedals were easily the weakest part of the system performance wise. With no load cell and just a basic spring for progression, they may be made from lovely dark steel and they feel very well assembled and smooth. They're just not mechanically advanced, and nor do we expect them to be at this price. However, thanks to Moza's Pithouse software, these simplistic pedals were nowhere near the reliability that they should have been in that Porsche Cup test that I did. The hardware shortfall in that non-load cell brake pedal can be compensated for heavily in the software. In those Porsche Cup races where I tested the R3, I modified the brake pedal curve to limit the maximum brake to around about 70%, and then I modified the brake curve leading up to that to make it easier for me to hit my marks. This software trick made it much easier to hit the marks I needed to hit and much harder to wildly overstep it. Under normal circumstances, with normal sim racing grade pedals, I would be way against manipulation of this kind. But on basic pedals, you really need these tricks just to even hold a candle to people that are competitive on better equipment than you. It worked beautifully, and although I definitely had to leave way more of a safety margin in the braking zones due to that uncertainty, and although I didn't feel anywhere near as connected to the brakes physically as I usually would, I was still able to brake well enough to punch in great race pace with a fair amount of consistency. Last time I checked, Fanatec doesn't allow you to modify the brake curves or throttle curves or anything like that as granular as Moza's does. This is a big performance advantage for Moza. If I was to pick between the CSL DD Ready to Race bundle and the Moza R3, even if you take everything else that's happening out of the equation, just from a performance per price paid perspective, the Moza R3 is just better because of that technological advantage, that software advantage of being able to modify the brake curves to just compensate for the lack of a load cell. Without the ability to tweak those brake curves like that in the Porsche Cup races, I would have done much worse, no doubt about it. In general, using other cars within iRacing and other simulators entirely, the R3 shows clean force feedback with lots of clarity, just not tons of power. Clarity is excellent for feeling the road effects like ripple curbs and track features. That sort of thing is way crisper and clearer on the R3 than it would be on the G923, for example. Clarity makes force feedback interesting. The R3's agility and responsiveness goes hand in hand with that clarity. Drifting isn't a thing I do, and drifting experts can probably tell just by looking, but I've got to say, the R3's quickness did actually surprise me when I flung some cars around a drift track for a bit. In this battleground, I didn't feel like I was missing anything, so if drifting or rallying is the thing you're into, where whipping the wheel round in big motions is more important than granular degree precision, this thing should actually be amazing for the money. In these circumstances, the R3's low maximum power doesn't feel low at all. Power, on the other hand, is useful for detecting grip or the lack of it, especially in the middle of corners. So the low relative power means you'll have to concentrate harder in order to listen to what the force feedback is telling you about the car. That probably won't be a big concern early on, as there's so much to learn before you start feeling the edge, but as soon as you start to sense that the lack of feeling is holding you back, that's when you know you've found your feet and now you're hitting the limit of what this can do. If you're a buy once, cry once kind of person, then this is the sort of thing you want to know about. The R3 is a short-term partner before settling down with something a bit more serious. Now, you definitely can't talk about the R3 without acknowledging that you have access to Moza's now extensive line of accessories, like handbrakes, steering wheels, shifters. There's really quite a lot now. Mods such as the Formula Wheel mod will allow you to convert the R3 steering wheel to a Formula style wheel for a mere 40 quid or thereabouts. You can use any of Moza's steering wheels too, and you can carry them forward onto your next, more powerful Moza base. The one mod that you might take interest in initially is the performance kit for the brake, but personally I didn't like this mod and I didn't feel like it was worth the price tag. It adds stiffness, sure, but it didn't add any useful progression for me. And if you're using your pedals freestanding on the floor, then you'll definitely want to skip it as it makes the brake too stiff to use without a cockpit. One thing to bear in mind with the Moza R3 is what if you want to upgrade or you just want to move on. Can you shift these things on the second-hand market, and are you going to lose a load of money if you do that? In my experience, Moza does actually command a decent price second-hand on places like eBay, and they don't tend to languish on there for weeks either. If you want to shift your Moza R3 on, you shouldn't be waiting very long to do that, and you shouldn't lose bags and bags of money by doing so. This is probably one of the most important things to know when you're weighing up whether to buy something, but at least with the R3, it looks like to me you can shift it on reasonably quickly and recoup your money fairly well. My time with the R3 was summed up as such. The R3 is a competent starter bundle for getting into sim racing, particularly for the under 18 crowd, and the price is good for what you get. If it succeeds in giving you a great introduction and hooking you in, it won't be long before you reach the R3's limit, and it's just down to you then how long you stay there. The second-hand market is healthy enough with Moza equipment to make it a fairly low risk thing to just dip your toe in with it. The pedals are the biggest weak point performance wise and will be the first thing you want to upgrade if you're looking to take sim racing seriously and show your best ability. But Moza's software is a big spoonful of sugar to help with that performance disadvantage when you start breaking into serious sim racing. The R5 has considerably stronger force feedback and isn't that far away in price at the moment, so if you don't need Xbox compatibility, it would be a good move to stretch just a little further for that if possible. It will satisfy you for much longer than the R3. Thank you for watching. I hope this was informative and helpful. If it was, leave a like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out the links in the video description on places where to buy. Definitely feel free to ask questions or for clarification on anything at all. If you want to know the answer to something, just pop it in the comments and I'll try and answer to the best of my ability. And cheers again for watching.